As I'm sort of, browsing, kind of getting some, maybe some good results here, but Google Scholar in particular wants to help you. So if you say Dungeons and Dragons and, you see, well, it starts to prompt you, but I don't think we did Satanism. Now the other thing, and we're going to kind of look at another example in a minute, we're using Boolean terms here, and. So Google Scholar sees Dungeons and Dragons and Satanism. It doesn't see Dungeons and Dragons and Satanism. If you put Dungeons and Dragons in direct quotes, then you're getting the exact term there, Dungeons and Dragons. Straight talk on Dungeons and Dragons. So we're getting some interesting stuff there. But we go back to our Laycock book, and between this and what we found in the past 10 minutes or so, I'm actually really comfortable. And in fact, the sort of rough kind of analytical fog is kind of forming here, that because I've seen sort of crime in video games and things like that. A point of comparison would sort of be, so in terms of the, if I'm finding stuff about the moral panic in Dungeons and Dragons, what's different about the moral panic surrounding Dungeons and Dragons compared to the moral panic surrounding something else, right? So like there's moral panics happen all the time. Elvis was a moral panic in the 1950s. He was going to result in the end of all sort of civilized values. Marijuana, sort of 1960s and 70s as a moral panic. So video games and violence, there's another moral panic. So as I'm kind of looking through the sources on Dungeons and Dragons and moral panics, it's actually kind of occurring to me that an angle to take on a paper would be what is similar or what is different from this specific moral panic around Dungeons and Dragons compared to other moral panics. And that would provide a nice analytical sort of way to talk about this topic. Now, in terms of one other thing. Before you move on, always do sort of a Google search. So you've done kind of regular bothered about Dungeons and Dragons. And again, we have a high level of confidence. Again, if I was doing a book, yeah, we're going to need a lot more stuff, but for a paper, this is fine. But Google pulls up the Wikipedia article of Patricia Pulling, who it says here, founded, bothered about Dungeons and Dragons, and what you never ever cite Wikipedia, okay, unless you're trying to sort of troll your instructor. But Wikipedia can be very useful when you go and look at the references of a Wikipedia article. So you may find some interesting sources. Now, some might not be great, but you're going to get a obituary of Patricia Pulling. That's a Gamma Game Manufacturers Association. They're pretty good. So the evolution of fantasy role-playing games. So we're actually getting, again, from the Wikipedia article, some decent sources there. Now, again, I'm going to be very surprised if we actually would have this book in our library, but worth a try. we've got book reviews of it. So again, if I was writing a giant book or chapter, then I would worry about this. But if I'm talking about a manageable one, I'm quite happy, and I didn't actually even have to do a lot of tweaking to the search terms. Yeah, just remember, that's good. You look at articles and see what you can add there. Again, we're not going to have the full text on that. Okay, so that was actually a very, very straightforward search, and as I said, primarily because we're lucky that the library has LACOC, and so again, we have that, but also we've got other sources. But let's just take another kind of potentially different angle. Moral panics and screen time is the other thing that I was sort of thinking about, and this is a little bit trickier. So and I just throw this out there because the moral panics are interesting in that they are they kind of occur in every generation, and it's always kind of fun to try to pick out what's the current moral panic. So if you wanted to sort of think about, well, maybe the this little Johnny or little Jennifer on the screen all the time, it's destroying them and so on and so forth. Maybe you could say, yeah, is it? Or is that a form of a moral panic there about the screen time? Now, I bring this up because it's a different kettle of fish in terms of the searching. So the Dungeons and Dragons moral panics was very straightforward search because it was an outright moral panic of Satanism and causing people, religious people to fret about the Dungeons and Dragons. With screen time, we're actually in a very contemporary situation where you're kind of questioning whether or not screen time is a moral panic. And that's a much more difficult search to do, okay? And so we'll just take a little bit about this. So we'll leave kind of moral panics and screen time. We're not getting a great result with moral panics and screen time. I didn't think we would. Screen time is a much too kind of specific term, so it should actually be internet. And now what's interesting is that, and again, let's go back here. So we're going to do moral. I'm going to get rid of some of this. Internet gaming addiction disorder, moral panic. So we're getting the ill effects of opium the spirit, internet addiction, moral panic. That's potentially quite useful. Okay. Internet and moral panic, a review of research about interaction of children, teenagers, and new mass media. So actually, yeah, we're getting a couple very interesting ones. So in terms of what we're looking at. And we're actually in a very interesting, we're getting some good results here in so far as this particular journalist brought us to a place with hyperlink stuff. with actual subject terms and keywords. Now I'm going to go and I'm going to take this one, and I'm going to try to find it in Google Scholar, and there it is. And I wanted it in Google Scholar because I wanted to see who cited it. Children's perception of parental mediation of the risks of the internet, and there's a cyberbullying. Kind of interesting, a few little dead ends there. But notice the other one that we found has cited by 57, so we can do related and cited by. See, none of this is specific to China, but again, do we have? Yeah, so again, what we're going to do is we're going to look around here, just culture as leader, culture capital. Yeah. So again, what I would do is I'm seeing a lot of Chinese sources here, but I'm also seeing some more general sources. So online dangers, geographies of parents' fears. And a few other ones that probably are a little bit more general. Folk devils and moral panics in the media, right here and here. So the I'm going to add so we added and children, and we're getting some good stuff. So here's high tech or high risk moral panics about girls online, the ill effects of opium, the spirit. That's that article that we've already had. So again, if we wanted to go that way to kind of talk about moral panic as, you know, that screen time is a moral panic, that you know, there's actually, you know, the way that the media talk about internet addiction. And again, let's just go on. So let's go to regular Google. So if we, you know, if I go on news, so I can find, you know, these are great, tons and tons of news articles about how bad, you know, the internet is for children and screen time, right? Screen time. Right, so you could, you know, find some examples of, you know, kind of the moral panic of, you know, oh my God, it's you know, causing terrible things here. And so you'd have a way of talking about moral panics in general. That's the last thing. So that's the last kind of search we'll do. So whether it's Dungeons and Dragons or screen time or I don't know, pick your moral panic. We just do the moral panics as a search, and lo and behold, we're getting some interesting stuff here. Full text online on the myth of moral panics, sex, snuff, and Satan, moral panics, Kenneth Thompson, and other stuff. So this goes back to the idea that was sort of germinating about comparing the moral panic of Dungeons and Dragons to other moral panics, or, you know, what's similar and what's different about it. But this has been, you know, fairly quick, and as I said, you know, we've had pretty good results, kind of starting fresh. Now you may say, look, Brian, you did an easy one, moral panics in Dungeons and Dragons, and Brian, you're obviously passionate about Dungeons and Dragons, and so you picked the soft one. Well, there's a lesson there, and that is actually pick something to research that you are passionate about, because you're right, it's actually easier and great. And if you get a topic assigned to you that is maybe not as interesting, try to figure out a way to make it interesting, tweaking your analysis or something, bringing in a perspective that does make it interesting, because that will be, that will make things, you're easier for you if you are obviously researching on there. And again, I'm kind of, I want to make sure I'm so tarrowing up these things. Just show you what the bibliography is kind of building up there. So that's a kind of quick overview of treating research as scholarly exploration. We didn't have to go into the advanced, the advanced features of the library search engine, and to be quite honest, if we had needed to, I would have. But between Google Scholar, looking at bibliographies of either Wikipedia or of really good sources that you find, I mean, you're probably going to be okay. And the last thing to say in terms of asking experts, I was stumbling around once and I got stuck. I was trying to access something online and it wouldn't let me log in or give it to me. So I went to the library webpage and I actually asked in here. I said, look, I'm trying to access this and it's giving me a paywall, but I'm on campus. And they actually emailed it to me. So, if you're searching and struggling either to find sources or to access sources, seek out help either, well, in the case of, I can't access this, ask the librarian. I can't find this, you could go to the lecture or to the library. But I mean, between the library catalog and Google Scholar, I mean, they're very powerful, and it's more a question of narrowing stuff down rather than sort of, not finding stuff. So that will do it for searching as strategic exploration. I hope you're able to try some of these strategies with success.